Good day, I am Dominic A. Butak Jr. from Mariano Marcos State University, taking up Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English. For today, I am going to present to you my speech as the first speaker in the affirmative side using the Australasian parliamentary system. Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen, we in the affirmative side believe in the motion that corruptors should be given death penalty. First, I would like to give the definition of corruptors and death penalty. Corruptors refer to the state officials, law enforcers, and other government officials who bribe government employees and other people in order to expedite their transactions with the state. Death penalty refers to the capital punishment and execution of an offender sentenced to death after conviction by the court of law of a criminal offense. Moving forward with the theme line, which consists of three premises. Premise number 1, bank account transparency detects and deters corruption that can be achieved when death penalty is the punishment of corrupt officials who are guilty and convicted with corruption. Premise number 2, the sustainable development of a country can be achieved through a government which is free from corruption, and this can be attained through giving corrupt state officials, law enforcers, and other government officials the ultimate sanction, which is death penalty, that will create deterrent effects to others who have pursuit of committing corruption. Premise 3, the eradication of commotion or civil unrest because of corruption can be attained through death penalty as the ultimate punishment for corrupt officials for perpetrating a heinous crime, which is corruption. To embark in the next part of my speech, I would like to present to you the team split, wherein I, as the first speaker, will present to you the advantages of charging corrupt officials, law enforcers, and other government officials with death penalty, which includes public transparency that deters corruption, good governance and sustainable development, and partial to complete eradication of civil unrest. The second speaker in the affirmative side will discuss or argue about the disadvantages of not imposing death penalty as a punishment for state officials, law enforcers, and other government officials who practice corruption, which includes inefficient bureaucracy, poor economic development, and bad image of the country. Each government official should be honest in his or her position and transparent in such way of bank account transparency for public access. Sudden huge increase of money in his or her account should be investigated that if proven guilty of corruption, he or she should be sentenced with capital punishment. The transparency of bank accounts of public officials will be one of the guides or bases that they are not corrupting any public resources for their own disposal. Likewise, it will serve as public information to ensure that the money in their account is not ill-gotten. According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, transparency allows detection and reduces the likelihood of corrupt behavior because it lowers the information barrier, allowing for scrutiny and monitoring. My argument is that transparency is a way to detect and deter corruption committing by the corrupt officials and that they should be sanctioned with death penalty for their criminal act. The charging of corrupt government officials with death penalty eradicates corruption in the government that results good governance and sustainable development, which is the idea that human societies must live and meet their needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. If corrupt government officials are to be sentenced with death penalty, the number of corrupt officials is lessened until fully diminished. Consequently, if these corruptors are to be taken out of the government, there would be a place for good governance and sustainable development that will be promoted by government officials who adhere good governance and democracy. According to UNODC, corruption hampers the attainment of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. The vast sums that are lost to corruption could have been used to improve living standards by increasing access to housing, health, education, and water. For example, the African Union estimates that 25% of the Africa's gross domestic product, or GDP, is lost to corruption. Moreover, Aid 2010 examines the relationship between corruption and sustainable development and found that there is a negative correlation between corruption and growth, and that corruption can put a country on an unsustainable path in which its capital base is eroded. Therefore, my argument is that corrupt officials should be sanctioned with death penalty to eradicate them in the government, and sustainable development will be fostered, and so is true with good governance. This means that the abolishment of corruption would have benefits to the country, especially to citizens in terms of housing, health, education, water, and other programs. Imposing death penalty as the ultimate punishment to corrupt government officials eliminates the commotion or civil unrest caused by corruption in the government. The non-justifiable acts of corrupt government officials promote civil unrest or civil disturbance such as riots, rallies, and protests by the people in their respective countries, and this should be ended by sentencing these corruptors with death penalty for their heinous crime, which is corruption. According to Lewis 2020, as cited in Jenkins and Bushner 2021, studies looking at African countries have concluded that grand, high-level corruption is more likely to generate protests, whereas research in other countries, notably China, suggests that street-level bribery is more likely to lead to protests. What appears clear is that different forms of corruption have diverging impacts on contentious politics by altering the costs and benefits associated with mobilizing to protest. Consequently, my argument is in order to stop the worsening disorder among citizens of countries and between them and the government, corruption should be likewise stopped, as it is achieved through giving corrupt officials death penalty as a result for their governmental misconduct, specifically corrupting money allocated for the different budgets in each sector, which is basically for the needs of the citizens of the country. Therefore, we in the affirmative side strongly adhere that corruptors should be given death penalty because of the three arguments presented, which include: number 1, bank account transparency is a must for government officials to detect if they are corrupting, and once convicted with a criminal act, they should be subjected into investigation, and once proven, they should be charged with capital punishment. Second, good governance and sustainable development should be achieved. Thus, corruption has to be abolished by sentencing the corruptors with death penalty. Third, civil disturbance because of corruption should be stopped, and the way to eradicate is through removing the corruptors through death penalty, who are the main reason of corruption. Thank you, and our second speaker in the affirmative side will further argue about the disadvantages of not giving corruptors as a punishment for their unlawful act.